You know that moment when your PC feels slow, so you open Task Manager to figure out what's going on? You glance at the numbers, CPU around 30%, memory looks fine, disk isn't maxed out, and you think, okay, nothing's wrong. And yet, everything still feels off. Apps take a bit too long to open, your system hesitates, something doesn't feel right. And that's where most people get confused, because according to Task Manager, everything looks normal. Here's the thing. That's exactly where the problem starts. Look, I'm going to say this straight. Most people are using Task Manager wrong, not because they don't understand the numbers, but because they're looking at the wrong signals. We've been trained to think performance issues show up as high usage, high CPU, high RAM, high disk. If something is maxed out, that's the problem. If it's not, everything must be fine. Sounds logical, but that's not how performance actually works. Because your PC doesn't feel slow when it's fully used. It feels slow when it's inconsistent, and Task Manager hides that. Let me explain. When you open Task Manager, what you're seeing is mostly averages, CPU usage over time, memory as a percentage, disk activity simplified. It's clean and easy to read, but misleading for real performance issues. Because the problem isn't always how much your system is used, it's when it's used. Think about it like interruptions. You're working, then something cuts in for a moment, then it's quiet, then another interruption. Even if those interruptions are small, they break your flow. That's exactly what happens inside your PC. Tiny spikes, micro delays, short bursts of activity that don't show clearly in averages but destroy responsiveness. And Task Manager smooths all of that out, so you see a calm graph while your experience feels chaotic. That's why your system can sit at 20 to 40% CPU usage and still feel slow, because those numbers don't show spikes, they don't show interruptions, and timing is everything. You click an app, there's a delay. Task Manager looks fine. What happened? Something else briefly took priority. A background process, an update check, an antivirus scan, just a fraction of a second, but enough to delay your action. Your brain notices it. Task Manager averages it out and moves on. That's why static numbers are misleading. Performance isn't static, it's dynamic. Now here's another mistake people make. They sort by highest usage and assume the biggest number is the problem. Sometimes it is, but often it isn't. Because the biggest number isn't always the biggest issue. A process using 2% CPU randomly can feel worse than one using 30% consistently. Why? Because predictable load is manageable. Random load isn't. Same with memory. People see 80% RAM usage and panic, but modern systems are designed to use memory. High usage isn't bad. Running out of memory is. Disk usage too. A quick spike to 100% isn't always a problem. Constant pressure is. So you start to see the pattern. Task Manager simplifies a complex system. That's useful, but dangerous if you rely on it blindly, because it makes you think in terms of high versus low, when the real issue is stable versus unstable. And once you understand that, everything changes. Instead of asking, what's using the most CPU, you ask, what's interrupting my system? Instead of chasing numbers, you look for patterns. What happens when you click something? What's running in the background? What changed recently? That's where the real answers are. So, what should you do? First, stop treating Task Manager like a scoreboard. Don't just glance, watch it. Interact with your system while it's open. Click things, switch apps, and see what changes in real time. Second, use the right tabs. The Performance tab shows trends. The Startup tab shows what's slowing you down before you even begin. Third, think in terms of impact. Ask, is this actually affecting what I'm doing? Fourth, reduce noise. Fewer startup programs, fewer background apps, a cleaner system. And finally, understand this. Task Manager is a tool, not an answer. It shows data, but it doesn't interpret it for you. And if you don't know what to look for, it's easy to draw the wrong conclusions. That's why so many people see normal numbers and still feel like their PC is slow, because they're measuring the wrong thing. The goal isn't low usage. The goal is consistency, responsiveness, stability. And that doesn't come from staring at percentages. It comes from understanding behavior. So next time your PC feels slow and you open Task Manager, don't just look at the numbers. Watch what happens. Because once you stop relying on averages and start noticing patterns, everything clicks. You finally see the real problem, And more importantly, you finally know how to fix it.